Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengal fan on most of the major platforms, and I am joined as always by my partner in crime, Sam Schneider, Primetime Sports Talk. Tell them where they can find your stuff, Sam.
Absolutely. You can find me at Buy and Sell You on Twitter. I write for Primetime Sports Talk, like Mark said. You can find us at Talk Primetime or on primetimesportstalk.com.
Great. And if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. We're just looking for your support. We don't ask for money or anything. Just support the channel and
We're
subscribe.
not asking for money, Mark.
We don't ask for money. No, we want YouTube's money down the road, but we just want your subscribers. That's all we want. So it's been a few weeks since we put out a show. Franchise tags have come and gone. Free agency's coming up next week. It's been a few weeks. I thought it was time we get an episode out there. Let's briefly touch on a couple things that happened over the last couple weeks, and then we'll get into some of the news. New uniforms. I know they were leaked. I think I was unduly harsh on them. And then later on, I started thinking, like, who cares what the uniforms look like? Let's just put a 12-4 team on the field. If that's the uniform we get to the postseason with Joe Burrow with, that's going to become my new favorite uniform. I don't care how ugly it is. So, let's see.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm a simpler is better guy. So I didn't mind the new mock-ups.
Less is more.
Less is more. If they're real, and we don't really know that yet.
We don't.
But when you see them off a hanger and somebody kind of puts them on a picture of a guy, I was like, yeah, you know what? I could get.
I saw the pants looked a little better with the pants, but initially when I first saw it, I didn't really like it. Just had the 3 stripes, but like I said, in the end, who cares? Put a winning team on the field, and
as like you said, as long as we're winning, then who cares what the uniforms look like?
We put Kenny Anderson in a new uniform in 1980, and the team made it to the Super Bowl on the new uniform. So
there you go.
Let's see. Also, I was very encouraged by the comments that Elizabeth Blackburn said. That's a granddaughter of Mike Brown, obviously Katie Blackburn's daughter, but real encouraged. I mean, you can see that there's hope that maybe the next generation, obviously they're certainly more social media savvy, and you can see they're taking the Hall of Fame, pushing players, stuff that we've been yelling about for the past 20 years that have fallen on deaf ears with Mike Brown. Apparently the daughter and the grandchildren are listening. So I was very encouraged by that. I know that's a couple weeks old, but I did want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think Liz Blackburn is doing a great job. I think anybody that follows the Bengals has seen what the social media account has done for the last year or so. They've been a little feisty, and
and they're advocating for our prior players more. We're talking more about Max Montoya should be in the Hall of Fame. We're talking about Riley. We're talking about the stuff, all the injustices that have been done to our franchise for the past, 40 years.
Yeah, the advocation is A1 number 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love what their social media team is doing right now, and it's a shame that we even need to talk about that.
Yeah, no, well, most teams already have this up and running, but we don't even have an indoor practice facility. So it's like Belichick can just send somebody to watch our guys practice outside because we don't even have a closed facility and we're a cold weather team. So there's a lot of things that we're late to the game on, and the Ring of Honor is one of them.
And that's a Mike Brown thing, and everybody complains about that. But this team is clearly transitioning from Mike to his daughter and Troy, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
you might not like Katie Blackburn, you might not like Troy, you might not like Liz, but we're clearly headed in a better direction than we were when we were super old school.
Right. So, and then I want to touch a little bit on the franchise tags. Obviously, we didn't tag anybody. I thought we maybe should have tagged Lawson just to kind of tie him up. But other than that, I didn't. I didn't want to break the bank for William Jackson III. I think he's a solid corner. I know you're not a big fan of him, but we've had. You can watch any of the prior videos. You know, we've had our Billy Jack 3 discussions, but I didn't want to spend. I always remember, you know, spending the money on Drake or Patrick and not keeping Witt around. So, you know, I don't want to break the bank on you know, on William Jackson III and not keep Lawson around, kind of thing. But what were your
Yeah, I
feelings
think
on
it's
not giving Lawson the tag?
yeah, no, I mean Lawson would have been between 17 and 18 million
Right.
dollar a year. And although he's played well, that's not a good business decision. It's that's just too much money.
Well, and
It's
here's the thing. I give the Bengals credit. We're one of those teams that doesn't kick the can down the road. Like the Steelers are paying the piper, you know, paying the tune right now with Roethlisberger basically is playing for, you know, 4 or 5 million this year base salary. And most of the rest of it that he's going to make is the signing bonus. But they, even if he only plays 1 year, they've got to pay another 20 million. He's going to be, like you said, Bobby Bonilla, you know,
yeah,
Manny, who was our guy, on the Dodgers, who was, you know, the
man
records.
ram. Yeah.
Manny Ramirez, the records were long gone, and they were paying 30 million. They were still doing, you know, paying 30 million a year to Manny Ramirez. So, you know, we don't do that. We expect, you know, we pay it, and that's why we're never in cap issues like they have. So,
Yeah, and you know, that's one of the things that I actually appreciate about the Bengals. You know, we complain all the time about what we spend or what we can spend, but nobody recognizes the business side of things, and how we handle that. I think, you know, I'm not a fan of Mike Brown, but do I want to pay a Bobby Bonilla football player for the next 20 years,
no, no,
$2 million a year? No, I
no.
don't want to.
Well, and I give the Bengals credit because one of the reasons why I think they didn't tag Lawson is because they're admitting, hey, we don't want to ultimately commit, because if he signs the franchise tag, that's it. We have to pay him that. That money goes into an escrow account. It's guaranteed. I don't think they wanted to do that, but we have this
Well, yeah,
history.
and if I could interrupt real quick, I'm gonna say it because I've said it a million times. We did it with AJ Green. And what did we do? We paid him $380,000 per catch.
Yeah, no, it didn't. Clearly, we didn't get our bang for our buck with AJ. With this case, we have this tendency, and the Bengals have a history of doing this, is that they let a player go out and test free agency in hopes that he'll return, and then we'll see what his market was. Now, there was a story today by Mike Florio saying where Lawson said the Bengals are the front runners, but it will be interesting. There's always a risk when you let your girlfriend have the hall pass to go out and date a couple guys. You know, there's a risk that she doesn't come home. So that's kind of a risk we're taking with Lawson. I do understand we didn't want to commit the money, but there's a risk. Hopefully he's a homer, he wants to stay, and we make him a legit offer, because he was one of the guys. He and Mackenzie Alexander were the two people I really wanted to try to keep on this team.
Yeah, I think that's I think that the hall pass analogy is
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a really, really good one.
yeah.
You know, Lawson's played 51 games. Uh, he's got 20 sacks. I think he's got I mean, he had 30 plus tackles for loss last year, which was really, really great. But all it said to me was that he just wasn't getting there quite fast enough, and he's still young. So I'm not ready to give him $17 million for 1 year and
Right,
then have to deal with this
right,
again
right.
next year. I think 4 years 44, $44 million, maybe with some incentives, make it 50.
Well, and the
We
Bengals
got to
thing,
entice him, but I'm not convinced that he wants to stay in Cincinnati.
no, that's not the article I saw had us believing that we're the front runners, we're the first choice. He would like to stay here, but like I said, the Bengals have done this before, where they let players go test the market, and then hopefully they come back. And we hope that this is one of those where he doesn't go away and fall in love with somebody else. That's all. Yeah,
Well,
I mean, can hope. It's a risk.
I think the problem is, we say that a guy wants to stay in Cincinnati, but do we actually know?
We don't. But that's what he's saying out there in the media. That was the story today. It's on my Twitter feed if you want to see it. But like I said, there's risk when you let somebody go out on a date with somebody else. So
of course.
One of the things I want to talk about is the change in the cap space. Typically the cap grows by 10 million a year, and here we're falling back. Like I think on Florio's story I read, we're falling back 19 million. So instead of going up 10, we fell back 19. So it's really a loss of 29 million. Most of the teams are very strapped. You're seeing a lot of quality players. I mean, just today, Kansas City let Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher go. Does that mean they're not on Kansas City next year? No, but it means they needed to clear the cap space out, because if they're going to keep those guys, it's not going to be on the contracts that they currently have, especially with Mitchell Schwartz having the back issue and everything. But we're seeing a lot of quality people get released. And so most of the teams are struggling with cap space. We are not one of those teams. So when you listen to Zach and Duke Tobin, both had press conferences this week, the common things that both guys said, and obviously, I mean, they have the same PR speechwriter, but we really like where we are. They kept circling back to every time. Well, do you think you could spend money on this? You could spend money on that? And you ask Duke Tobin, we really like where we are. We like where we are with the cap space. We have a lot of flexibility. These are statements, because I watched both, that I wrote down, that they both kept saying, and they both kept circling back to. We are in a good position to add quality players. They both kept circling back to these themes. So I'm thinking that's one of the reasons why we didn't tag Lawson, is we have money to spend. We're one of those teams that does. So players aren't going to get as much as they thought they were going to get out there in free agency on previous years, but we're in a position where we can sign some quality guys that other teams can't even consider. The Steelers can't consider. They're having trouble keeping their own players.
Yeah, it's an interesting year after the all of the economic downturn for teams in 2020 because of COVID-19. So there's a lot of people cutting people that they're gonna do their best to resign. So Lawson is a great example, but you've got, at the same time, tons of guys that are hitting free agency that probably would not have prior. And so it's offering the opportunity for teams like the Bengals to swoop in. And, Bengals fans are, well, not Bengals fans, football fans in general. They want everybody. Right. Everybody that gets cut, we want him. Right. Everybody that's cut, we want him. And you can't have them all. It's
we can't be the Steinbrenner Yankees, where there was no salary cap in baseball. There still isn't, but there was no salary cap. And George Steinbrenner, who, for those of you who don't know, he made most of his money. He owned a company that made cruise ships. These were actually, most guys collect baseball cards. He collected actual baseball players. And so it was like, Reggie Jackson, I want him. He went out and got him. Whoever it was. But that's not the reality in the NFL. And certainly not today's NFL with salary cap and COVID and all that. So
and it's certainly not the reality for the Bengals. I mean, you've got owners that are out there like Jerry Jones and Bob Kraft that made millions doing something else. The Bengals, I mean, this is a family business.
Right.
It's not, we don't have the kind of money that they have.
Right. Well,
I don't know how many times I can say that.
well, but see,
before
Jerry
people
Jones and stuff can
understand.
offer guys later in career, hey, you know what? If you're part of this family, you're a lifetime player. You know, there's this, that, and the other later on. We can't throw that out there. But in terms of salary cap, we all have the same amount of money we can spend. You know, right now, guaranteed money. So
That's very true. And but some can go over it, and some will just hit the floor and be done.
right.
You know what I mean? I mean, we got what, $40 million. I think we're fifth highest
Yeah, no, we've
in
got
the
capital to
league
spend.
as far as cap
Yeah.
availability, but would we go over that? Probably not.
No,
Probably
and we'll take the hit now.
we'll
The one thing that we'll do,
we'll go right to it,
right?
and then just stop. I think it's worth mentioning, Mark. You know, the Bengals in the past, and I actually respect this. In the past, we have always re-signed our own players. We've re-signed guys that meant something to us, and that's always been more important than going out in free agency and grabbing people. So you got guys like cornerback and returner Brandon Wilson.
Right.
He's a free agent. He needs to be resigned.
Right.
Kevin Huber, our punter needs to be resigned. You know, Josh Bynes, everybody talks about, you know, a bunch of the linebackers that are hitting the market. Josh Bynes had a fantastic season,
Right.
and could get signed for a very fraction of what Kyle Van Noy would cost.
Right. And
And
they
then-
tried to deal him. Miami was going to release him. They tried to deal him. They can't find trade partners. See, that's the thing. Everybody's trying to offload these contracts. And if you really want the player, you know, then you'll do it. You just look at what that the haul with the Lions just took just to take Goff, just to
Right.
take on his contract. Believe me, Stafford was considered the better quarterback that could win right now.
Oh, for
Goff
sure.
just had an undesirable contract. Wentz, same thing. You had Indy take on, and Philly unloaded that contract. Those contracts were signed the same year because those guys were 1 and 2 in the same draft, and they got their extensions at the same time. But you see teams offloading. You watch Kansas City letting Fisher and Schwartz go. Teams have got to get under this number, and it's a struggle for a lot of teams, and we're in a really good position, which is why I liked what I heard in the 2 press conferences, in that, you know, we have a lot of flexibility. We like where we are. They stayed on point, but hopefully we go out and we spend some money, because I'd love to see a reunion with Zeke. I'd love to see us get Thuney from New England. And there's no reason why we can't get both of those guards. There's no reason. We have the money to do it.
Yeah, well, and you've got there's other guys out there too. You know, if you lose Carl Lawson, there's guys like Jarrell Casey from Denver, who just got cut, who would probably be a bargain. You got Thuney, who's from Ohio.
He's my number one. He's top of my list. He's top of a lot of Bengal fans' lists. And then
I agree 100%. He's A1, number one. I wrote it in that article, and I'll put it in the comments.
Right.
He is A1, number one. This is the thing.
By the way, that article's on my Twitter feed. That article is also on the LA Bengal fan Facebook page. And obviously you can check Sam's Twitter feed. He's got it. So great read. And Sam runs through a lot of great information. So
I appreciate that, Mark.
But yeah, Thuney's my number one. Zietler's my number one.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how many offensive linemen are on the market, because that I've talked about this a million times, that market is really thin, and it's in my opinion, aside from maybe quarterback, it's the most important part of the team.
Absolutely.
And you've got guys like Alejandro Villanueva from Pittsburgh. You've got guys from, Brandon, sure, from Washington got tagged, but
Right.
I mean, there's offensive linemen out there like crazy, and I agree with you. They're getting cut because the contract was too big,
Right.
but they're going to get snapped up really fast.
When they draw up these contracts, they assume that the cap space is going to go up, up, up. They're always assuming that it's never going to pull back. So not only did we not go up, we pulled back. And that's why I said, you have a contract that was written 3 years ago. They probably thought the cap was going to be well over 200 million. It's not. It's at 183 or 182 and a half, wherever they settled on, but it's nowhere near where they thought it was going to be 3 years ago when they gave these people money. So that's an issue. And you see teams struggling, and there's going to be a free agent pool like there's never been before of quality players. And I'm hoping that we spend our money wisely. An offensive line, I will take that over anything. If we have a superior offense, I mean, how many teams, when you see them playing the Chiefs, okay, when Mahomes first broke on in his second year, were so petrified, going on fourth downs, taking chances because they didn't think they could match the Chiefs' points. They weren't concerned about the Chiefs' defense. They were concerned about keeping up with the Chiefs' scoring. If we can put together an offensive line and an offense like that, that will help our defense out immensely. So, and we can get by. So I would rather spend the 18 million, even though I want to keep Lawson, I would rather see that 18 million go to contracts for Zeke and Thuney and get two of these quality guards in here. So
yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning, and again, this is in the article. I hate to say this, I really, really do. If we cut Geno Atkins, we save $23 million over the next 2 years. $23 million.
Yeah, no.
None of us want to see him go.
No.
He is a consummate professional.
Yes.
He's a leader. He's a quiet leader. He's been amazing for the Cincinnati community, but this is a business.
Right.
It's the same thing as I've talked about ad nauseum with AJ Green.
Yeah.
It's just a business. The only issue with that is, if you let Geno Atkins go, then you better re-sign Mike Daniels and you better get another defensive tackle in the middle.
Right. Well, we'll have Reader back. We'll have Reader with them, but we'll see. And see how it plays out.
But Christian Covington is not the answer.
No,
he's not. He's just not the guy. So this is the thing. You save money by letting Geno Atkins go, but that gives you money for your offensive line, your defensive linemen, and potentially for a replacement for Carl Lawson. Right. Let alone William Jackson III, who's probably going to ask for 3 years, $32 million.
He's going to be too rich. There will be a team that will step up that will pay Jackson, so he's not going to be coming back. Lawson, there's a possibility he won't be. If what I'm reading, and he does want to stay, then maybe he tests free agency, comes back, and he gets the, like you said, what did you say, a 4-year deal for like 45 million or something, and we front load it. Well, the thing is, you front load the first couple of years for them. That way we don't have to carry it on. In 2 years we could move on from it, and it gives them the incentive to stay.
As long as the dead cap is low. Yeah.
And it gives them the incentive to stay, because they can get a bit. All of a sudden, when you can cash, when hey, I'm going to get 20 million right now, between signing bonus and my salary, I'm going to have $20 million this year. That's, there aren't a lot of teams that are going to be able to do that. We're one of them. So we'll be able to do that. That's why I said we could, if it's structured right, we could get Zeke and we could get Thuney if we spend our money wisely.
Yeah, I agree with that. And on the free agent front, you talk about guys like Lawson. It's just a question, like, you can't get in his head. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know what he's thinking.
So
I don't know if he wants to stay in Cincinnati, regardless of an article.
right.
I don't know. Maybe he thinks I could get way more than this.
We'll see. Like I said, if you give him the hall pass, there's always a chance that he gets taken to that nice steakhouse and gets wooed and falls in love. You don't know. Or he goes and he says, you know what? I kind of, for the extra amount of money. I always point to Kirby Puckett. People don't remember Kirby Puckett turned down more money from the Red Sox, and he stayed in Minnesota. He said, how much money do you need? And he took, at the time, it's not a big number by today's standards, but by then, I mean, the whole contract was, I think, 24. He took like 24 million instead of 28 million. It was 4 million. But back at that point, if you're making 2 million a year, it was a big deal. But he got booed by Red Sox fans because he turned down the money. But to him, it wasn't just about the money. These guys are all going to be well paid wherever they go. So,
well, and it's interesting you mentioned that because Joe Thuney is from Spring Hills, Ohio. So he, this is home for him. Right. But at the same time, he tweeted out something that said, I'm gone from the Vikings, but I'm still in Minnesota, and I will always be in Minnesota. So you just don't know what guys are thinking. It's the same thing for I'm sorry, that was Kyle Rudolph.
Rudolph said, I was going to say,
yeah, Rudolph said that.
Right.
But Thuney is from Spring Hills as well. Right. Rudolph is from Cincinnati. Rudolph said, I will always be in Minnesota. Thuney, you want to bring back, but you just don't know what these guys are thinking.
Well, bear in mind, this is
going through their head.
This is the season of misinformation. You pretend you're enamored by somebody in the draft that you have no intention of drafting because you want other teams to think you're going to draft that player. So they need to trade ahead of you and get that player. And that means that another quality player falls down to you. You have the Eagles right now talking like they're going to draft a quarterback. Well, what will that do? Well, maybe a team thinking the Eagles might actually take a quarterback, right, and create a competition and all that, they go ahead and they trade up with us because they're afraid. It's the season of misinformation. It's that way with the free agents as well. So,
yeah, I agree. And of course, we're going to, anybody that's watching knows we're going to do a full draft episode.
We'll do a recap on this free agency, and then we're gonna do pre and post draft episodes, and so that's why we don't want to go too much in there. But I'm just saying we are in the season of misinformation. Teams are pumping up players that they really want to move. They have no intention of keeping them, but you don't say, hey, this guy sucks. He doesn't have a place on our team, because then teams just wait for you to cut him. So instead they say, oh, we really like what we're seeing. This guy's been such a great leader, blah, 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 blah. And then they try to move him. So it's just a season of misinformation. So bear that in mind.
It really is, because everybody is trying to save some money. I'll throw this in at the end. These are not sexy deals at all. But 1 year deal for long snapper Clark Harris.
Right.
Great deal.
Right.
He's been awesome. He's a Guinness World Record holder. If you don't know that, look it up. Jalen Davis, the cornerback, really didn't do a whole lot in the secondary. Great special teams player.
Right.
Great to have. Brandon Allen, backup quarterback.
Yes, I saw we re-signed him.
1-year deal.
Right.
That's great.
Which means Finley is bye-bye.
I think Finley is bye-bye. I think
even though he won the Steeler game, he's bye-bye.
Yeah, he's just
we saw he doesn't have it.
He's just not a good quarterback.
No, that was not. So,
but I guess that's what I'm saying is, I said that a long time ago is, the Bengals have always made it a priority to re-sign their own people. We get a lot of crap for not spending. But we do spend. We just spend on our own guys.
Well, we spent last year. We went out and got Reeder. We went out and got Daniels. We showed we could.
And we
need to do the same thing this year, but we need to be smart about it. And there's going to be quality guys where we don't need to break the bank, but we could pay more than a lot of these other teams. And I really think people look at Tampa Bay last year and they see that Brady specifically picked this team because they had a lot of pieces in place, and then they had a great draft. They got a great lineman, a great corner. Both of them turned out to be amazing picks, were reasons why they won the Super Bowl and got to the Super Bowl. And I think that I think we kind of have the same pieces in place with the skill positions. If we show that we go out and put some guys on the offensive line and go ahead and draft and have a good draft, there's no reason why we can't make some noise. We really can't.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the money to do it. We've got the money to spend. That, like you said,
we like where we are. We've got a lot of flexibility. We're in a good position to add quality players.
Yeah, like you said, we've got the money to do it. I just we got to sign our own guys first before the 3 guys I just mentioned. Before we re-signed them, we had 24 free agents. That's a lot. Right. That's a lot of free agents.
But you know what? Bobby Hart we need his cap space. Geno Atkins, we need his cap space. AJ Green, we need the cap space. I mean, there's some of these guys where we don't have a choice, and we're not going to pay William Jackson III. We're not going to, and Lawson we're going to keep, but at the right price. And I'm like I said, I'm still hoping the 2 guys that I really, really want to re-sign back, they're going to cost us some money, are Lawson and Mackenzie Alexander. I would like to see those 2 guys return.
I think Mackenzie Alexander, aside from Lawson, is like A2.
Right.
Like, he needs to be here. But like, I'll tell you right now, you cut Bobby Hart $5.5 million. You cut CJ Uzama $5.1 million.
Right.
And you get somebody like Kyle Rudolph for around the same price. We already cut BJ Finney. No dead cap. $3.3 million.
Right.
Geno Atkins, $23 million.
He's a big one. If you got to cut him, and then if you can work out a deal to bring him back, just like all these other teams are doing, you let them go and see if you can you can come back in, and they have to want to be part of something, like I said, that we're building. And I just think we're, money spent right. We're in a good position. And that's why I was encouraged. Usually I bash Zach all season about saying the same buzzwords every week, I really like the effort we put out. He has his standard taglines that he goes back to. But when I watch Zach,
all coaches have that though.
I know, but they have to, and you stay on point. But I like the things, like I said, I got what they were saying. That I was reading between the lines and saying, okay, they feel like they've got enough pile of cash and they've got enough chips in front of them to where they can make some noise. And with Burrow, it changes a lot of things because he's, I think guys want to come play here. So we're going to see. We're going to see how this plays out.
I think we need to address the players that mean a lot to us that are already on the team, and then go into free agency.
And I'm not saying that Bobby Hart doesn't come back. Bobby Hart comes back, but he's a pure backup because we do need depth.
Bobby Hart.
Well, I'm just saying if he comes back and he's a true backup, but not right now. Last season we went into the season with Bobby Hart as a starter. That's
Right.
cannot be. We're going to
Right.
get Trey Hopkins back. And that was the other thing I want to talk about real quickly before we wrap up is that we do hear that Burrow is on schedule. Everything's going fine with his rehab. And we also, Trey Hopkins was the other one where they said everything's going right on schedule because we need Hopkins back next year.
Yeah.
And actually this year, but for this upcoming season, Hopkins is a key piece with Jonah Williams and all the different. Hopkins is a key component to our offensive line.
And of course, we'll talk about when we do our draft episode. We'll talk about Penny Sewell and what that means for Jonah. What position he'll be in. Free agency is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
I think we have to replace AJ, and I think Golden Tate, Will Fuller. These are all guys that are options just to stretch the field.
Will Fuller, though, you only get him for 12 games. He's suspended for the first 4.
Well, and I'm not going to lie, I can't stand Will Fuller, but
no.
I just somebody needs to stretch the field.
Right.
That's what we need. I mean, I would sign Desean Jackson tomorrow if he would just run. I don't even need him to do anything.
He's out
just
there.
Run and draw a cornerback and a safety back.
Right.
So that Boyd and Higgins can do their thing.
And Auden Tate, we've got, like I said.
And Auden Tate, I mean, the guy's a monster. He deserves the chance.
Right. So, like I said, I like where we're at in the skill positions. We've got to beef up the offensive line, and we're just going to see. Let's sit back and see how next week goes with free agency. Desean Jackson's an interesting one you brought up. I could see us, when he's not on a team late June, kind of throwing him in when he's willing to take that 1-year contract at, a couple $1 million or something.
I think my favorite mark is, and we'll be outbid, I think, but my favorite is Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
From the Panthers.
Right.
The guy is Mohamed Sanu 4.0.
Right.
He's amazing, but he's going to be really, really expensive.
Yeah, we don't want to. Like I said, I want to spend money on offensive linemen because I really think, and we can get a late round. The Steelers show you all the time that there's late round gems in wide receivers. Hell, we see it in ourselves with Auden Tate and guys like that. There's some late round gems in receivers, so you don't have to.
I mean,
I have to break the bank for these guys.
I would love to see Curtis Samuel in our uniform. He's just probably going to be too expensive for what we need to spend money on.
So we'll see. And don't be upset if we don't sign guys right away. The Bengals historically are not one of these ones that will sign the first blockbuster. They wait and they get the guys at their price, and they will talk to, like I said, and hopefully, I don't know if you've heard anything about Zeke. I'm hoping he wants to come back because it's just a great time for him to return to the Bengals. We could really use him. And we already know what we're getting in him. So,
yeah.
So, and I know the Giants let him go specifically on cap reasons again. He's another cap casualty. They got him, but they can't afford him. So
it's going to be interesting to see what the market is for offensive linemen. Yeah. There's so many out there, but everybody needs so many of them that I honestly, I mean, I spend all day doing this, and I honestly don't know what people are going to spend.
This is year 2 of Burrow's rookie contract, and one of the reasons why we have so much draft capital is we're not paying Joe Burrow $30 million a year right now. So that's one of the reasons why we have that draft capital. And when we do have to pay Joe Burrow that kind of money, hopefully we're out of this COVID thing, or we don't have Ebola 16 or whatever it is down the road. We don't have that. Just to give you guys an idea of why there's so much little amount of money there. The NFL announced today that instead of making $16 billion last year, they make $12 billion. Now, I know you say, oh, it's billions, it's this, but there's a lot of expenses. There's stadium leases. There's things they've got to pay for. That's a 25% hit on your income. 16
$4 billion
is a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah, and that's spread out across all the teams. So this is why the cap space went down, because the money isn't there. Like I said, like it used to be, and that's why you see teams shedding the salary. So remind everybody where they can find your stuff. So we
absolutely, you can find me on Twitter at Buy and Sell You. I write for Primetime Sports Talk. You can find us at Talk Primetime or primetimesportstalk.com.
As always, we will put up another episode probably we'll wait and see how free agency plays out. So we'll probably be back in a couple weeks. And then obviously we have the draft coming up in April. So we will be back.
If we got any big free agents.
Oh yeah. If something huge happens, we'll be back with the show. Don't worry. So, and please subscribe if you don't subscribe. And with that, I'm going to say, hoo day, everybody.
Hoo day.
All right. Take care. We'll see you soon.